Okay, guys, I think we're all set to get started. And thank you again for joining our knowledge sessions by the Digital Fifth. So this is another knowledge sessions that we continue to do on every alternate Thursday, right? So this time we're going to talk about the secured lending. As you know that most of the banks, if you look at it, as well as many of the NBFCs are into that space. And banks, if you look at it, most of the banks will have the good number of percentage, more than like almost 70 to 80% on the secured lending, and some of them may be going up to 90-95% of the lending to the secured. And this time, and within the secured lending, what we are going to focus is that how do you go about from the physical to digital, and why we use the word physical, because if you look at it, the most of the banks or the NBFCs and HFC would have done certain portion of the processes digital, right? And then how you can extend that digital, which is maybe 20% to the 70 to 80%. And we may not be able to do the 100% on completely digital. Also, there could be a possibility. So that's why we'll just try to focus that where the opportunities are there, what are the avenues where that digital intervention can be done, right, to optimize the whole of the processes. So before that session, I'll just introduce myself and then my co-panelist Vikrant Kulkarni. So myself, Shashank Shekhar. Many of you may be knowing us at the Digital Fifth, but primarily, so I started with my career with L&T Infotech and the Wipro, where that I was primarily in the technology and cybersecurity and governance advisory. Then I worked with the DCB Bank almost for 8 years, where that I primarily involved along with Samir and Vikrant into digital transformation of the bank across different products, be it on the asset and liabilities, and we revamped the entire digital banking at the bank, right? And then Samir started this firm in 2017 with a rare objective to build a pure play fintech and digital consulting firm, purely focus on the BFSI segment, right? So that's where that we operate, and in this space, maybe we will be the largest among all the players. Very focused on the BFSI segment, and we also do the Bharat FinTech Summit. Many of you might have attended our Bharat FinTech Summit event, which is another largest event in the fintech space that you may find it. We focus on the pure play and the content side of it. And next VF is coming in the February 5th and 6th, and if you are not enrolled for our newsletter, please enroll where that you can get the communication with respect to PFS. And before I continue, maybe Vikrant, you can just do a quick introduction from your side.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Vikrant here. I'm a principal consultant at the Digital Fifth. As a background, prior to this, I was with Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, heading on to the digital banking from technology side. And prior to that, I was with Shashank and Samir working at DCB Bank, handling some of the part of in-house development, payment infrastructure, and API banking from technology side. Prior to that, I had experience in working in prepaid technology. I was back then handling the development work out there with a small team in Mumbai.
Thanks, Vikrant. Thanks. I think someone is not able to hear us, but I assume that everyone is able to hear us and can see the screen also. So we've already, Samir is the founder and CEO. So Samir comes with a very strong experience of working with Kotak City, as well as worked quite longer period at the Infosys, driving the digital transformations at the various banks. And he was the CTO of DCB Bank prior to starting the Digital Fifth. So I'll skip that. I don't want to, this is just a quick snapshot of our portfolio of the customers that we have worked with, and majority of the banks and NBFC, we have worked into that space of the secured lending as well as a different aspect of the lending, including unsecured. Not taking much of the time, but just very fundamentally, we are a practitioner, as we could have seen that our experience that we are working with the banks. So we have done those implementation, we have done those transformation on our own, and that's where that it puts us into place to work with our customers to correlate their pain and challenges and the limitations, and that's where that we work with based on our experience. So pure play practitioner approach that we adopt into our consulting delivery, and we largely work on the content side of it. Webinar, these knowledge sessions are part of our thought leadership, and we keep on publishing multiple reports at the regular intervals, newsletters. There way you can get to know about some of our thought process on the emerging topics. And in fact, very soon that we will be launching our in-depth report on the secured lending within the India. what's the transformation, what next is happening into the secure lending. So keep glued to our notification beat on the LinkedIn as well as our website. So with this, we'll just get started. I'll just skip few of the pointers. So secure lending, we do a lot of work, be it on the standardization of standard operating procedures or writing the standard operating procedures for your secure lending products. We can help you to complete your digital journey transformation, optimization, improvement of the TAT with respect to align to the industry best practices, as well as help you to run the entire set of the digital secure lending business by setting up the whole of the processes and transformations, and then also helping you to run the business. As a part of the transformation, we can do the benchmarking with the industry peers. So without taking much of the time, we'll just get started. So on the secure lending, before that, we just get an overview. So if you look at it, various aspects of the secure loans, as everybody is moving toward the secure lending, and regulators also emphasizing more and more on the banks to go for the secure lending. And in terms of secure lending, primarily in this whole context, we are focusing on mortgage-based, primarily home loans or say loan against property kind of thing. We are not contextually, you may not find it with respect to the gold loan or other secured products like, so primarily is more focused on the mortgage side of it. So if you look at it, some of the aspects with respect to lending, the TAT is typically pretty long, be it on your home loan, and depending on the situation, like existing customer to the new to bank customer, pre-approved properties, non-approved properties, known construction form, or it's like a self-development kind of thing. Depending on all these things, your TAC continue to varies, and 20 to 25 days could be also on the one of the best possibilities could be there, right? So TAT always is a challenge, and the cost of acquisitions also in that space goes very high, and it can go. And I'm not talking about here just including that your DSA commissions. Typically, largely the industry operate into the secure lending, especially in this space, through the DSA network, right? And DSA commissions that we are not talking about it, but primarily the cost related to your legal, technical, risk verifications, the FIs, and all this, and as well as including your sales teams or the credit team to and fro visits, right? So that's where the cost could go ahead. And very simple example I could give you that many times some of the banks I've seen, if the property is into some kind of a dispute or some kind of the challenge or not in the right market, bank may opt for the do technicals to get the right valuations, because the one valuation may not give the true pictures of the property because it's not a standard property, right? So that's where the cost may go up because there are two technical verifications are there. And also some situation can happen that if there are variations in the two evaluations, you may try to do an alternate other variations, right? So that's where the cost of acquisition is very high into that space. And that because the cost per loan also can go very high because your number of days are higher, multiple interfaces are involved. So that's where the costs per loan also go high. Productivity definitely in this secured loan products like mortgage or the lab kind of thing, lots of the document activity gets repetitive, right? PD also, like sales guy may also do the personal discussions and try to understand. Your credit guys also may do the personal discussions. Sales guys do the verification of all the documentation. Credit team also may end up doing the verification. Dispersal stage again, you may do the same verification and again, right? And because it's on a longer duration of the projects, the entire origination to dispersal. So that's where that also productivity can go higher. And definitely that in this whole process, the customer experience may get impacted. Let's say, for example, if the in this whole process, you may be taking like more than 40, 50, 45 signatures. And if the signatures are having some places missed out, you are again reaching out to customer to do the signatures. This could be cumbersome, right? Also, various kind of redocumentation may require, like, say, for example, if there is a name mismatch, if there's signature mismatch, some kind of declarations that you will require. And there that you are continue to emphasize and go back to the customers and asking for his redocumentation on kind of thing. So that's why you will have challenge. But when you're trying that largely the digital process that you try to do that, you may definitely have a better turnaround time, and it can vary up to from the 2 days to 7 days, and depend on the situation. And again, one point I will try to clarify that all the digital transformations within the secure lending may not have the uniform impact across all your product, across all your customer segment, because that home loan has so much of the variations. Like, for example, I was talking about metro cities, the home loans where that builder is approved builder or builder is known builders, while to the remote cities where that you will have the builder loans, also various kind of dimensions. So everything may not apply. It's all depends upon that what maximum that you can optimize, right? Your own processes can able to impact a good percentage of your loan products, right? So that's where that you need to look at it. And I'll talk about some of these elements as we go forward. Definitely it will have the cost reductions, improvement in the productivity, and then definitely a better customer experience. Yes, it could be possible that customer, when he is applying for the home loan, he may not be too much of the hurry. He may be willing to wait. But what about his experience? But if the customer is looking for lab kind of things and he has a certain obligations to be fulfilled, that definitely he may be looking for the better TAT also, that how quickly you can give him the loan, because he has an dependencies to expand his business. Please feel free to put up a question in Q&A sections. We'll be at regular interval, we'll be picking up those questions for the discussions. We definitely would love to have an interaction, and we may not be perfect. We would also happy to pick up your thought process in case if somebody is having an experience. So if you look at it, just try to summarize the secure lending process in just one very short snap, then definitely start with the lead generation, which could be the sales guys, which could be through the DSA, which could be the online, right? And then entire the documentation collection, and document collections is huge, not only because here it involves over the individuals, the business, the property, all the sort of the documentation you may, and if co-applicants and rest of the things, right? Then you do the perform the credit underwriting, which may involve the credit personal discussions, the verification of the property, then also doing the credit personal discussions that may need quite well, and they do the perform that underwriting, running the PRE, right? And at the same time, property is highly linked to the fraud part of it and the risk. So fraud and risk checks also you will get to perform at this stage. Then go on to perform the legal and the valuations checks, so where that typically lenders are partner with a third party, which is the lawyers as well as the technical valuers, where that they partner and they do perform that activity and build up the report and will be giving to the bank. Then you can do the entire, once everything is gone, then mortgage creation, insurance collections will happen. Then documentation collections, the charge creation, that at least once a loan has been filed before dispersal, you would like to do the charge creations, that property is hypothecated. Then dispersal, and then post dispersal, definitely you need like to do the service portfolio and account monitoring. And this is also very critical because you can continue to see that your property prices are not going down, right? Because if the property pricing has been wider variations, then it may have an impact on your loan, right? So that's where you do need to do that. And definitely the closure, when the closure happens, how the customer able to get his collateralized loan agreements, how do you hand over to him, right? Because that time also you need to be very clear that account is closed and the document has been handed over to the right audience. So in fact, I just gone through that recent process, and it was not easy. Like you need to create an affidavit, especially if the property has the co-applicant and the co-applicant is not available, then it becomes more cumbersome process. So those are the aspects also need to be taken care of it. So why the digital is a challenge? I think some of the elements that we have spoken about, but definitely lending being in a regulatory space, then regulatory challenges that you need to be taken care of, be it on the KYC stage, the fraud check, your ML checks, all those aspects that need to be very carefully adhered as per the regulatory directions that is there from the RBI. Fragmented digital infrastructure, especially in the mortgage side, banks may not have the full-fledged LOS. When I'm talking about bank side of it, so you may not have the fully integrated LOS to take care of the entire life cycle, which I was talking about the previous slides, right? Some of the portion like origination might be taken care of it, or the dispersal might have been taken care of, but rest of the processes go beyond that LOS, right? So that's where that digital infrastructure, as well as some of this external element, right? For the KYC, you may have the APIs. For the bank statement, GST, for the underwriting, financial assessment, you may have the APIs. But what about you, the valuation part of it or the legal part of it? This information is not available, right? Definitely, documentation requirement is very complex because you need to look at that. One is the individuals, and I'm talking about as the product goes from individual salary to the sole proprietor for the business loans. So you see that variation, like partnership. The partnership, if there is a mortgage property and loan against property, then more complexity of the documentations, right? So huge part of the documentation which required. That becomes another very complex part of it. And then again, the customer trust and behavior, because when the customer is looking for a loan and definitely, and especially he's mortgaging his one of the critical assets that he has built over a period of time, he also looking for some kind of the face-to-face interactions, right? He also like to have a kind of the comfort and the trust factors. And then definitely a larger part, which is another major complex part, is the legal and property verifications, right? Again, I was talking about that this whole process varies from the state to state, cities to cities, right? How do you do the legal scrutiny of the documentation, establishing the chain of the titles as the property is holding up, right? And getting the right valuations getting done. So these are the typically challenges, your incumbrance certification or all those things, as I was talking about, it varies from the region to region. So that's where these are the typical challenges which hampers the banks and the lenders to go for the full digitizations, right? And so it's just a kind of another challenge that you may find it there is multiple stakeholders in the whole of the loan process, right from that your third party like DSAs and all the and as well as your sales teams, your credit team. Credit also you have the multiple team, the risk unit, the fraud unit, then disbursement operations unit. So you will have multiple stakeholders. And everybody has their own way to evaluate the property, evaluate the loan cases, and everybody can keep on coming back with an additional requirement. That has been, as we work with the multiple banks in this space, I've seen in that most of the loan processes, like at one stage, you will never find that everything, and I'm talking again up to the 100% cases. 10% you may be getting right at the first stage for the applications, right? But 90% of the cases, you will find that documentation requirements keep on getting added as the loan application keep on moving one hop to other hop, and it continue to go till the dispersal happens. Like at the dispersal stage, some of the things which is as the final checks when the dispersal operation team is doing that, he may also figure it out that there are certain missing points are there, which the again sales team or the credit team need to go back to customers and obtain that. Very difficult to find out on a kind of a unified view that where that my application gets stuck. And primary reason, as I was talking about, that you may not, very rarely you may find that a few of the banks might have able to get it right, where that entire the secure lending has been very tightly coupled around their LOS, but majority of the places LOS partially taking care of the process, but largely things are moving in the offline stage, right? While some places status getting updated on the LOS, while some other places status doesn't get updated in the LOS, right? You have still have the CRM to manage the entire life cycle of the application, so you don't get that view. And many times also you will find that customer when try to check for that any kind of the status of this application, he may not get that. So if the modules unit head and try to look at that, how many applications are at the legal stage, how many applications are my at that risk stage or the fraud check stage, it was very difficult to get into that, right? So and that's where that lack of unified process and integration of physical and digital challenges. Data security and privacy always remain a challenge as a part of any kind of a lending process, right? Or the banking process where that you are collecting lots of the information from the customers. And that definitely the entire the complexity of the secure lending process itself. And as I was talking about, again, emphasize the process complexity keep on increasing from the salaried individuals with a good credit scores, having a house in the metros or buying a house in the metros from the authorized builder to a sole proprietor or the partnership form in some remote cities where that unauthorized, I'm not saying unauthorized, but unknown builders where the properties has doesn't have a good chain of records, and that kind of, and not having a good civil score also. So that's kind of the variation you can have seen, and that's where the complexity continue to build up. So why it needs to be definitely enhanced, definitely customer expectations continue to change. As we have been becoming more and more digital savvy, we are also becoming more digitally. Expectations are continuously keep on growing, right? Within a habit of the UPIs, doing the tap and pay kind of things, watching Instagram or kind of things, swiping and all this thing. We have getting into the instant gratification stage, right? So loan definitely in the secure lending doesn't come that instant gratification, but how do you give them a good experience that everything is working in a smooth manner? So that's where the typically platforms and things helps. And definitely he's looking some kind of hassle-free journey. You'll largely find that NPS for this home loan customers at the lower side because customer has gone through that kind of the grind, right? Our digital adoption has continued to increase. So as many of the platforms players, the digital infrastructures continue to emphasize and continue to push for the digital adoption into the lending. So unsecured, if you look at it, largely being digitized. But now since the unsecured has been largely been digitized, the business, other stakeholders have seen that experience. They would like to adopt the similar kind of experience, similar kind of digital adoption into that secure lending space also. And then definitely a technology advancement innovations is continue to drive that kind of the digitizations, right? So how it can be digitized? So suppose before we go into that very specifics where that Vikrant will walk us through some of these processes and some of the dimensions. But few of the things that you need to look at that very particular like customer experience and expectations. Like if you're going back 10 times to the customer, and I talk about like working with a couple of banks and NBFCs, and we have seen that at least 15 to 20 times the customers are being touched upon, right? Customers are being reached out because you need every time some signature has been missed out, some data has been missed out, some additional documentation required, some declaration is required. Almost like just imagine that during the whole of the process, if you are going back to customers, so that's where the customer experience that you need to see that how much you can reduce the touch point with the customers, right? How minimally that you operate so that at least the documentation which has been getting collected are being right in the first stage itself. And again, it will not apply to the 100 to 100%, right? Then you need to look at your technology infrastructures because your technology infrastructure need to be into that stage which can support that tight coupling of the entire secure learning process with your digital platform capabilities that you have, as well as your ability to integrate with the available API infrastructures in the market, right? And some of this experimentation that you can do with some players which are coming into the market, which can help you into the sort of the complex process like valuations as well as the legal, right? So your technical infrastructure that you need to be very particular about it. Make sure that you are not deviating from the regulatory compliance. So whatever the digital journey that you are building up, regulatory compliance can't be compromised. Focus on the how do you bring the operational efficiency. When I say operational efficiency, you need to make sure that everything which has been captured, everything which has been processed at any particular stage has been processed right? So that at least like, for example, at the documentation or at the origination stage, if you have got all the KYCs, the documentation verification of the right, then in the next stage, nobody is going to relook at it again and again, right? So that's where the duplication of the works keeps on coming. But if the documentation has been collected in the offline manners, definitely there are always chances of the missing out certain things and that lead to the duplications. So operational efficiency is very critical. Risk management. So risk management with respect to individual, whether that individual doesn't have carrying any kind of the risk with respect to AML, with respect to any fraud. Then also the property, because properties related frauds are much higher. Either it could be valuation has been jacked up, or it could be the property itself has not been on the right person names, or somebody is frauding his family member itself to get the loans, right? So this segment itself is a very fraud based kind of thing. So you need to have focusing whole of the process that you're building. How do you able to take care of the risk part of it, and which including the fraud part of this, because you can't compromise on that part, right? Build up a customer support channel so that customers is continuously engaged in the whole duration of 7 days or 10 days, whatever the tag that you are building up. And then again, very important cost benefit analysis. You can't build on 100 rupees of solutions to get a 10 rupees of the benefits, right? It can't happen that. So you need to be very particular that if certain things is getting embedded into your processes, are you getting the cost benefit in terms of either the TAT reduction, either in the cost reductions, or bringing that kind of the operational efficiency? So let's say, for example, if any sales guy is able to handle like 10 application in a month, but if you are able to make that process changes, you are allowing him to make the 20 application, 30 application, that's a definitely as a process improvement and the cost improvement. So those kind of the benefit that you need to be very focused about it, right? And definitely any change comes into the organization, how you are able to handle the change management part of it. A few things which is already we all are aware from the lending perspective what has been sorted and which has been largely sorted, like e-sign, and these names are just for the representations, not very specific that we are very inclined. It's just for the representations. So let's say, for example, entire the signing of agreement at this time of the disbursal, which is a very complex, like 20 pages of the documentation, where that every pages that individual has to sign. If there are co-applicants, multiple co-applicants, just imagine the 3 times of the multiple signatures, right? So you can use the DCOs. Entire the mandate process has been largely being sorted, where that you can initiate the NACH, which is again now have been continued to improve with the debit card based NACH, internet banking NACH, or the UPI auto pay also, because UPI based loan collection also the EMI amount has been increased, or that Aadhaar based NACH that you can initiate, right? Mandate creation. So then your bureau's account statement and account aggregator coming into the process that's allowed you to access that entire his account statement from the multiple banks, which can allow you to do the better underwriting. Then business related documentation has also been APIfied, right? Where that lots of the APIs related to business, the directors you can fetch. KYC has been largely sorted. So these are like typically one side have been very well taken care of it. But with respect to secured lending and the home loans, the legal is still very challenged. Going to the registrar office, getting that right title and all these things, it still is a very manual process that where the lawyer has to visit those SRO's office. Now we have seen that many of the SROs are digitizing the records, right? And in the near future, we may have a situation where the APIs are available, where that you can fetch that title records or the chain of the titles through the SROs, but that may still take some time. But some kind of the work is still, we can see that being taking place. So digital SROs is a future where that we may see some kind of advancement. Entire the whole sales agreement, the document, because you need to collect that sales agreement at that time of the disbursal, creating the charge for the hypothecation purpose, where that either the customer or the bank staff need to go to the SRO and mark it as a charge creation. So those again is a very manual process. The entire the valuation part of it, that verifying that what is the right value for the property, where you need to rely upon that market experts to get the right valuations, and the personal discussion, which either at the sales stage or the credit stage, you need to interact with the customer. What is the purpose that he is taking the loan for, especially in the case of the lab? Is it for the business? What is his objectives? And then also assessing his personal discussions also involved assessing that risk profile of the individuals, which typically banks try to do through the third party. So one is that being done by the sales, being done by the credit, but there is a risk part being taken care by the third parties, right? So that's why the multiple party involved. These are still one of the major unsolved, and complexity continue to increase as per the different customer segments, the property and all. Some of the works that we have been seen, and we'll talk about as we proceed, like Velocity, which is one of the leading fintech in that space, where that it's able to generate some of the valuation of the properties based on the location. Video PD, because video KYC adoption continue to increase. You may many of the banks lenders have started using. Can they perform the video personal discussion, which can take care of your liveliness checks and all these things, right? And that digital SROs, where I was talking about that SROs beat on the certain state like Andhra and the UP, where that lots of the records have been digitized, including your chain of the record. But still, those are not available through the APIs, where that you can go and fetch those informations, right? So these are some of the challenges. But things are changing. Again, some of these names are for the representation purpose, but lenders are continue to focus on the secured lending and is digitizing whole of the processes, because it impacts everyone. Now, subsequently, as we proceed, Vikrant, I'll invite, and we'll go into that some of the stages of the processes, where that how the digital intervention is taking place and how it is helping. But before that, Vikrant, if you can just pick up if there are any questions.
Yeah, sure.
I am facing some challenge in accessing the question on the Zoom side.
I can call out. So there is a question regarding pulling out the commercial bureau record online through the API. What I currently know in the market is like you are able to pull the commercial bureau report from the online from the API base, but the journey is a bit complex because that is in the sense of utilizing GSP portal access and authorization as well at certain places. So that is something which is could be a cumbersome process, but otherwise it is possible, which is going to be the easiest part to fetch that report, which will be composite report of the promoter as well as the company details as a part of bureau record.
But also, Vikrant, I think as I understand, we've been talking to the bureaus. I think commercial bureau also they have sorted out largely through the APIs, right? Not
Right.
only providing the scores and the details, but entire the reports. You may experiment with there are multiple bureaus from the CBILS to the CRI 5 mark. You can try it out. But I think most of the bureaus have got that commercial bureau right, which has been used by the banks now these days or the lenders. Yeah. Thanks. And guys, since we are already at the mid stage, we look forward for your feedback because your feedback helps. These are the complex topics we are attempting to come up within our knowledge, but your feedback will help us whether what we need to improve and whether you like it or not, right? So Vikrant, over to you. Maybe you would like to showcase the screen from your side. And
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, hope my screen is visible. Yeah. So now we'll talk about the details of the journey, right? As a way Shashank was mentioning, like it has been grown up in the multiple phases, and each of the phases getting digitalized. So there are a lot of challenges from the perspective of the journeys which were there in the past, and there are some of the opportunities also which can be looked at in terms of doing the digitalization of these processes. So we'll try to focus on each of the journey. On the high level, it starts with the lead generation, then origination, and then sanctioning, and then servicing. Now what we'll try to do is we'll try to touch upon each of the system of interfaces, like respectively it will be CRM, LOS, BRE, and LMS, and try to talk about some of the pointers where it is getting changed and what are the new things can come up, and how you can look at it at as a perspective of what new innovations we can build into it. Considering the first part of it from the perspective of the lead generation, we'll see there are multiple, you can say, the platforms or the channels through which lead generation happens for the secured lending, specifically in HLN lab. It will be through branch network. It will be through sales teams, which are field sales field teams, which are there on the fields looking out for the customer, as well as the digital platforms. One of the aspect also there is of the digital DSS, which is also there in this section from the perspective of the lead generation. So currently, what we are expecting to come in this segment is largely from the coming leads coming through the marketplaces. Some of the places like where the Magic Bricks or 99 Acres, where the properties are listed down for the consumer to pick up upon. There also will see the request for the loan coming from that side as well. So lead generation will be again broaden the area. It will be from the interior designers, largely the reconstruction or the doing the interior changes into the home also is one of the factor where the typically loan has been looked out for. So this change, I mean, this can also be one of the area where the people would try to enter into the loan related queries or loan related requirements, as well as the home centric service providers are the definitely one which looks to be one of the promising channel to initiate the lending journeys. So if we want to see from the perspective of the lenders, what it will be, or who will be the possible partners for them. Say, for example, it will be input suppliers which are from the cement industry, or it will be from the industry, from the steel industry, etc. Those would be there. There will be people who are service provider like Live Space or Homeland. We talked about marketplaces also, and digital platforms always been a one of the channel which is directly interacting with the customer for this. So this will land on the CRM. So considering that, the CRM interface should have to be more stringent. So some of the challenges which are there today is like sales digital interface is mainly towards understanding or taking collecting the documents, right? So based on that, it has been looked at. It has not been looked at from the end-to-end tracking perspective, or giving the interface channel to the customer to, if in case of any discrepancies or additional documents is required, the customer can do it on yeah, on his own. So those aspects have not been much looked at too. Some of them are there, but it's not fully sorted out, which we can say in current scenario. So currently, if we see, like, the journeys have also been broken in between. I mean, when we see about the typical journeys which I have there, you will see that there are a lot of iterations which happens in between. As we discussed earlier, some of the challenges, like be it from the documentation perspective, KYC perspective, legal record perspective. So those are the many of the places which has been the entire journey has been broken down. If you talk about only onboarding, KYC is the main area where typically it's been seen there are a few challenges which have been sought from the perspective of the picking up the smoother onboarding journeys, or the continuous onboarding journeys as such. So there are a lot of scope for digitization, maybe from the perspective of the API based digitization, having the transformation in the APIs and clearer integrations mechanism used by the CRM, because typically earlier it would not have been possible, because the application itself was not capable of that, but because of by virtue of PAN and Aadhaar based API integrations, etc., the CRMs have also been evolved to include this API integrations into the consideration as a part of a CRM platform. Also, extending the CRM platform capabilities as a LOS platform is something which can be looked at, where you can not only just use CRM for the onboarding the customer or taking the lead, you can just do the primary analysis of the customer also at the place of CRM, where the basic checks are been done, and then the lead is been forwarded upon, which gives a more qualified lead sort of capability to build upon. The document submission, typically lots of papers gets floated into the secured lending, which again lead to signing the documents, etc. So many of the times it has been seen like there are digital documents have been obtained, but apart from that, the physical document, signed document is also been obtained for the customer, and then you have discrepancies into those, because some of the times the sign would not match, the print would not be clear. So those aspects come into the picture, which can be minimized or which can be eliminated if we adopt the digitalization in proper way. So as we are extending the thought of using CRM as a pre-LOS sort of thing, where the automated eligibility check can be enabled based on the data which is available. So that will also help to get the edge cases out of the scenario in the initial phase itself, which will help you to work more towards the converted leads in the later phase of the application. So from the digitization perspective, I mean, the digital or API-fied interface would be there, which will be extended to the DSAs, connected multiple channels. Those will be there, or real estate agents, and from them, the leads would can come to the customer as sales interface design, which can be used for the tracking of the loan, uploading the documents, and customer requests or complaints of that can be raised at that point of time, which will then put up to the lead generation. So which will be not just lead generation, but as well as the qualification as well, which will give you the properly qualified lead as an output, which will be passed on for the documentation and collection, and the rest of the journey would be continued from there. So there are a lot of documents which can be verified through the APIs as well. Like it can be of the GST, shop establishment, UN, Udyam Aadhaar, ITR records. So these are the things can be put as a part of the lead generation journey into the picture. So what are the things that need to be tracked to assess whether this has been implemented properly, or this is into the process of implementation or not? Is like the number of customer touch points should be reduced, because one of the prominent statements Shashank talked about, the number of times you touch the customer, the number of times his availability, and overall the cost for connecting that customer and making him onboarding him to the platform becomes difficult. The documentation also makes a lot larger seat, because many of the times what happens that you have the checklist where some of the pointers are missed, and then again somebody has to go to collect that document again from the customer, and this just keeps going here and there. From the perspective of the TAT also, it definitely impacts. And just to highlight, the customer is not onboarded yet, right? It is just a lead generation journey which has been going on. So towards that time, if TAT is more, then definitely customer will not have the the experience at the later stage would be more difficult for him. So how do you assess that whether the digitalization what you have done, or the some of the aspects which you have implemented, whether that has been successful or not? One will be the lead to login success ratio. So lead has been come, but a lead has been logged in, the basic details have been put in, and now it has been following you up for the next stage of the from the lead generation to the sanctioning stage. Also, the digital channel efficiency is there. There are a lot of digital channels been used, and those have been giving you all the leads from their perspective. And of course, the coverage is more, because physically there is always a limitation of the coverage, because as a sales staff or as a field officer, there are certain limitations beyond which one person cannot move far, right? So that makes you typically abide to serving to those locations which are within your territory. But definitely digital will give you that perspective where you can go outside your territory, and take the lead onto your platform and make it to through the rest of the journey. From the CRM, from the lead generation to the origination is where the more detailing will happen. So there will be like property documentation verification. There are the credit bureau checks which would be happening, the eKYC processes, and underwriting, initial underwriting process, which is typically happen in this phase. So what are the new possible innovations are there in this segment is like origination is largely has to be it is physical, which has to be from the perspective of the property document can be digitized. So there can be uses of APIs can be done. There are very limited LOS players who can handle these digital journeys, but the journeys can be digitized up to a certain extent. So interestingly, we had a chat with one of the NBFC during one of our sessions earlier, where they have mentioned they have been transforming the HLN lab into the full digitization. So logging, be it sourcing, origination, or be it sanctioning, or up to the dispersal. So maximum flow, they have tried to put it as a digitization. So they had to uh, opt for certain LOS and certain, the BRE engines, which are typically customized the form for that. But it helped them to put the process down, and basically measure of your operation works gets reduced, and gives you the more control on the risk management as well for the from the customer and customer risk management perspective. What are the possible scenarios that it can be picked up, like shifting the decision making to the BRE, the initial decision making to the BRE? You can digitize the origination process, where you can look after getting the proposals, visibility, and loan pricing through the digital products itself. The BREs can be streamlined to get the pre-approvals and data-driven offers. Considering the credit bureau check, eKYC, and basic documentations, it can be done. Also, there are certain we'll talk about in the rest of the journey, which can help you from the proper companies, which can help you from the property documents perspective as well. So this will give you a better ground to look after the customer and take it to the next stage. So how it is happening currently? Currently, application is submitted, then document verification happens, and then it goes for the underwriting. So in the current scenario, the all the data is largely been put up manually. So what happens is largely the many of the times the form has been printed out and then sent to the backend office, where somebody will put this data entry onto the portal, and looks after physical form and the documentation which have been submitted from the customer side. So, but that can be reduced with the API-led data can be fetched, online KYC can be done. Some of the property details, as I was mentioning, can be pulled up from the players like Magic Bricks, or be it No Brokerhood, etc. So these are the players which can help you out there. On the document verification side, currently the manual verification takes place, where the documents are uploaded on the portal, but still those have been verified manually by the person sitting behind the machine. So that can be replaced by the OCR after understanding what are the key areas that has to be looked out. This can be replaced by the OCR. And also the PD is one of the options which is largely been used now, because that gives you leeway to not to travel to the multiple locations. From the nearest location, you can do the video PD as well, and if required, a manual or physical visit can be planned for that particular case as well. So it moves after this to the underwriting, where the partial it is partially manual and partially digitalized thing, because some of the factors which are collected are been looked as a BRE from the I mean in the BRE as a part of underwriting in digitized way, but some of them are still the manual. One of the pain points Shashank was talking about, like the account statement uploadation, is one of the challenge which is there. If you have the downloading the account statement from the online, you will have to use the internet banking, which is largely been the services which have been provided by the Perfios, etc., where you have to log into the internet banking, and from there your account statement will be downloaded. So which are bit of cumbersome processes, and may lead to break the journey for the customers as well. And how it can be improved upon is, like, you can use account aggregator instead, where you will have the you will be able to pull the record of the account details of the account statement of the customer online itself, and you don't have to break the journey. It can go along with the customer journey which is going currently. The bureau pools, of course, their multi bureau pools is something which has been looked out now, not relying on the single bureau, but looking at the multiple bureaus for the customers' credit worthiness. It's something which been looked at now. So that also is possible with the API integrations from the bureaus, be it retail, be it commercial. Both things are possible from that perspective. Also, the statement analyzers have also been playing its role. So in the case of retail, there you will see a lot of statement analyzers will help you to get this understanding on what are the cash flows of the customer and how he's been managing his accounts. But on the side of uh, the corporates also, there have been some of the improvements which have been happening in this space. Yeah. So from the origination perspective, so automated credit scoring is can be something can be looked at. Fraud check digitization can be looked at. The credit PD process can be optimized through video PD, or defining set of rules for the PD. It can be looked upon. Uh, some of the points which you can consider to assess where you are standing from the perspective of the digitization or optimization of the origination processes, you can look at the cost for the underwriting which has been used currently can will be reduced. The customer query resolution stat will be reduced, since many of the things will be happening online. Document rejection rates will be way lower, because these documents have been sourced from the online, or I can say the digital manner. So you will have the authenticity of that as well. The data points which have been used for underwriting in different workflows will be increased, because it will give you a leeway to pass the customers which are typically are not not been authorized or not been uh, sanctioned in the typical way. The overall document verification accuracy is gets will also get improved upon. From the sanctioning perspective, some of the major factor comes here, like valuation, legal,
So
the
Vikrant,
offer.
so we'll just
Yes,
move to the next, there are some questions we may pick it up.
sure.
So Shalu is asking, how does the journey of HLL lab vary during the lead ingestion? Yeah, definitely. There are some variations will happen, and especially in the like HL case also, it may vary, right? Where the sanction is not, he's only looking at the sanction stage, property not been finalized. And lab where that during the lead itself you will try to get the documentation property information. So there will be slight variations, not on the much of the bigger variation, but depending on the property situations, you will require to collect some documentation information. Pre-approved loans definitely fit largely into the secured process, especially on the digital. Pre-approved, it could be pre-approved where that you have already analyzed that customer data, he is existing your customer, your KYC has been done. That's expectations, right? So definitely that things can move much faster into your secure digital process. And that's why I was talking about that, and we can talk about grid-based swim lanes, like you can create based on the ETB pre-approved, then you can put the process, right? So that's where you can simplify lots more things in the pre-approved case, right? So that's where just short, but while these both the topics are there to further detailed discussions.
Sure.
So Vikrant, maybe you can just continue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And please be cognizant of the time. Yeah, sure. And guys, please share your feedback. Your feedback is always helpful. Please do that.
Moving forward on the sanctioning side, one of the factor which we talked about the pre-approved. So that also brings up here, like when the property is known to the financier, typically you will have the pre-approved property as well for that particular customer. So considering the combination, just speaking of extending the same thought, like when you have the same customer, which is your own customer, and when you have a property which is been authorized, typically this has to be a end-to-end digital flow, because you know the customer, you know the property as well. So it will give you leeway to look after the journeys in a faster way, which can help you to move forward towards the disbursement and the later stages of the loan once the offer has been accepted by the customers. Just coming back to the flow from the perspective of the sanctioning, typically, where the new innovations we can look at it is like integration of the new revenue departments and the SROs, which would we talk about, which have been largely been digitized, will also will help you to do the property as well as the mortgage creations will be simplified out there. So multiple LOS providers have been listed out here, but those are just indicative which have been there. This is not the exhaustive list as such. From the legal and valuation perspective, currently it's an isolated process, largely happens outside the LOS and manually and based on email or follow-ups. So many of the times it happens that in case of the legal, the lawyers and valuers will have to come to the branches, or they will have to travel to the location where the retail asset centers have been set up for this particular financial, but that are can be digitized. So this also can be looked after to have the digital legal valuation processes, where SROs also can be considered in those cases, and property valuation platforms like Velocity also helps in these spaces. So players like Martram are also coming up into this space, which are simplifying the legalization processes as well for the customers, as well as for the financiers. Looking at the issuance and the acceptance of the sanction letter, so this is done largely on the email or physically, but this can be also digitized, which is already been solved as a part of your unsecured lending journeys as well. So rest of the part, when I talk about the payment processing fees or submission of original property documents, so at least the payment processing fees can be done by the NACH, and it can be pulled as a direct deduction from the loan account, and then pick up the rest of the amount from the as a part of repayment. The submission of original property documents is something which is still may need to have the physical journey out there, but that can be simplified if the journeys have been optimized as a part of the pre-approved the what you can say pre-approved property documents with the customer. So charge creation for the property, the manual visits to the SROs can be simplified. So largely measure of the SROs, if I'm not wrong, around 80% SROs have been digitized now, which have access through the internet. So they can be put up the request on the through the APIs, and uh, that can be helped out from the SRO side. Agreement signing, so player like DGO can help you with the e-signing processes, which will be easier for the customers as well to do. And there are multiple options that comes up to the e-signing as well, which makes them easy to sign the documents. From the velocity, one of the factor which we talked about is from the perspective of the validation of the property. So they looked after the valuation workflows as well as mortgage valuation process. They look after that. So they can build you the market analysis. They can build you they can give you the output from the perspective of whether this property is there or not. If it is not there, if it is there, the detailing of the report can be given by out by them, which will give you the idea about the property which has been there. So that simplifies your valuation stage of the mortgage as well. So these are the simple, I mean, one of the players which are there. There are multiple players which are in the market, but from the example perspective, we have been picked up. Similarly, we talked about SROs, so would not spend much of the time, but there are players like Landed, which have simplified this by digitizing the property documents, which can be, I mean, integrated through the SROs as well as with the can be used by the retail customers with legal services as well. So from the perspective of how it can be simplified in the sanction stage is like the legal process digitization, valuation process can be digitized, the sanction letter and loan agreement and payments part also can be digitized. So there are some of the KPIs which will help you to assess whether this has been implemented correctly. Not is largely the accuracy of the reports, the number of cases which have been handled by the fintech partners can be increased. And of course, there are the some of the pointers which are related to TAT, the negotiation, loan term negotiations, the e-signing adoption rates can be reduced from that perspective as a part of successful implementation. From the servicing perspective, so largely this talks about the loan servicing which happens customer needs, collateral mapping, the enabling balance transfer or cross-selling of the top-up loans to the customers, as well as error-free repayments for the customers, where largely this is related to LMS and the rest of the loan management applications, like it can be EWS perspective or NPA management perspective. So dispersal and collection part, which is largely based on the payment. So this would be largely typical. I would like what we have today in the uh, unsecured lending, but a bit of the part can be different here in terms of disbursement, because based on the property which is there and based on the type of loan, the disbursement schedule can be different. So that is something which would be different in case of the secured lending, apart from the traditional unsecured lending cases. From the perspective of the collection, largely these are automated collections which are available today. So these are typically the NACH, in-edge based collections, and UPI also as well as coming up into the picture as a part of auto pay services. The self-service portals and dashboards are required for the customers, where they can get their own statements. They can make some of the inquiries, change requests also can be raised there. The easy access to the queries which have been raised by the customer, that can be handled through the self-service and dashboards. So of course, there are multiple opportunities for cross sells and upsells that can be looked upon. Some of the KPIs can be tracked is will be largely from the customer perspective, whether the overall the disbursement rate is increased, the cross sell and conversion rate, as well as first contact resolutions have been increased a lot. So largely we'll see the file storage cost will be reduced because no paper floating much. Dispersal time, cycle time will be reduced, and average query resolution time also will be reduced from that perspective. So that is overall from the journey perspective. We just request Shashank to take up on the key trends and the market innovations on this.
Yeah, thanks, Vikrant. And I think as we are running short of the time, we'll just try to touch upon most of the things already been spoken. So yes, everybody is looking at revamping the secured lending journeys. We've been talking with various lenders, be it on the NBFC and or the bank. They want to relook at their entire the secured lending, both on the HL and the lab side, and they want looking for the revamp wherever that as much as manual intervention can be reduced. Standardizing the processes, because that's also bank the lenders are finding that across the regions, because of certain demands from the regions also, there is some variation, including at the variation at the checklist level. So that's where that also they have been trying to standardize full of the processes, and also helping they are trying to look at that how the entire the LOS and LMS can be stitched around and rebuild around that entire your secure lending product. So they're looking to rebuild that entire the secure lending digital platform. with the help of the lending partner, LOS partner, or some of them are building their own also. I think one of the other trends, definitely they are looking into bank fintech partnership, especially they want to experiment, maybe even the 5% of the cases, right? And as I was talking about, the based on the grid, right? Based on the profiles, based on that risk appetite of the customers, where the banks is looking. And definitely, whole objective is to reduce the TAC as much as possible, but at the same time, more focus on to improving the customer experience. Vikrant, if you can just go next. Yeah, some of the things as we were talking about the partnership, I think we have already spoken about, but that's where that some of this where that they are looking into that how this fintech valuation partnership valuation fintechs who are operating into that space, building the some kind of the platforms to provide some of the valuation informations can be used, as well as some of these guys who are working very closely in the back end with the lawyers as well as with the SROs, where that they can help and providing the APIs kind of things, like, for example, Advar is they call one nation, one APIs to work with the entities to help you do that. But it may not be 100%, but as we were talking about, these segments, these fintechs will continue to evolve, right? And it all depends on the as the adoption continue to increase. And go, we can just go next. Yeah. So lastly, as we were talking about, very critical your partnership with your DSAs, who is also need to be digitals, your legal, technical, the guys who are supporting into your risk and fraud processes, as well as your fintech partnership. I think partnership is going to be critical. You need to definitely look at from the customer perspective and customer personas, right? Create your customer personas depending on the his property profile as well, right? Not on the customer from the customer perspective, but also the property profile perspectives. Industry is definitely looking for the customer expectations. Tech innovations need to be looked at. You need to track and see that how it can be implemented as per the requirement, right? As per the grid structure, depending on the profiles, right? PL and BL, as we unsecured has been digitized, so we are somewhere there. So, but now moving into the direction of the full digitizations, right? And not a fintech story anymore, because secured is definitely not a fintech story, right? So this is pure play bankers and the lenders story. That's where they're going to build it into that. But go digital, be careful, because secured lending is not an easy, it's a complex process. So you need to be very careful that how you walk on your path of the digitizations, right? So with this, we'll take a pause and we come to the end of the sessions. But yeah, it was amazing discussions, guys. I think Parag, I'll pick up the last questions, which is there. Is your experience, are you seeing a seamless integration with SRO? No, definitely not at this stage, Parag, because as we was talking about SROs, now they are digitizing the records, but there's still a long way to go with your integrations with through the APIs, right? Where that the digital records for the this property can be fetched, right? But some of these fintechs, which is helping within a community of the lawyers to get some information, compile some information. Let's say, for example, what they are doing, that if they have done that any property, especially in the case of the lab, if they have done that kind of the property verification for any particular lab, they maintain the records, right? So in case the next customer reaches to other lender, and then if they can, they have the information about this property, which for that already the legal has been run, they're able to provide you the information immediately, right? So it's like in a case-to-case basis, and as continue to grow, I think we'll have receive a better integration, especially in the lab cases. Yes, for sure. So thank you, guys, and I hope you are going to have given the feedback. Those who have not given the feedback, again, as my sincere request, please share your feedback. Your feedback always keep on motivating us, right? So, but thank you again, and on behalf of me and Vikrant, we definitely are very grateful for you to attending us and keep giving us feedback, allow us to continue to improve upon. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Again, be watchful on our LinkedIn page as well as on our website for the launch of the secure lending report, which will be coming soon. And also those who want to interest to participate in Bharat Fintech Summit, please reach out to our website for the more information on Bharat Fintech Summit. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Shashank.
Bye.